Have you also heard about distributed renewable energy sources stressing our energy grids? Let's find out how flexibility markets might solve this. I will now talk to Gesa Milzer of Nodes, who enable flexibility trading with their services. Hi, Gesa. Thanks for joining.
Hi, Anish. Thanks for inviting me for this interview.
Gesa, I have the feeling that there is a lot of concern about distributed renewable energy sources. In your opinion, what are the main challenges of current energy grids face?
Well, I think you mentioned it correctly. There are concerns of renewable energy sources and that are currently mainly linked to grid capacity limitations. So renewable energy sources do have an intermittent production. They are quite volatile in their profile of energy production. And there are concerns around the grid capacity being able to provide or to show limitations in periods of high renewable energy production, or even more than the renewable energy sources, it's more the actual load pattern due to increased electrification, digitalization that we are currently seeing almost everywhere. The question is mainly to which extent is the current grid infrastructure actually able to deal with these needs for capacity and for the increased volumes of capacity for the grid. I think this is the main question nowadays around renewable energy sources and or linked to grid capacity constraints.
Okay. At Nodes at your company, you're working on flexibility markets that are a quite promising solution for many of these issues. Can you explain what a flexibility market is and why these markets are becoming essential for modern energy grids?
Yes, well, it's true. Flexibility market as a term becomes more and more prevalent. I think the idea of an online market is by now quite well known through pages or platforms like eBay or Amazon. I think those are quite prominent examples. Everyone is more and more getting familiar to. This is the same concept for a flexibility market. It's just right as the name says, the product that is traded on the market platform is flexibility. And there, when we refer to flexibility, we refer to the ability of adapting consumption or production related or as a response to a price signal that within flexibility market, in most cases, is sent by a system operator, so a TSO or a DSO.
What does this mean for me as a private household? Will the rollout of flexibility markets limit the availability of electricity in my household?
No. Absolutely not. This is not the idea of how flexibility markets work. Instead, flexibility markets involve roles and participants that have the responsibility to follow the flexibility value chain, meaning you as a household, you are represented by a flexibility service provider, which maybe the retailer or the supplier that you have your electricity contract with, and it's his responsibility to ensure that ideally you don't even notice when you are offering flexibility to the system operator for grid services so that your baseload is covered, and ideally you get certain incentives or signals that encourage you to, for instance, to launch a washing machine right now, or if you have an electric vehicle, to start charging it, maybe not just right at 6 o'clock, but at night. But as a household itself, you should not be concerned at all that you find yourself in a situation where you have no electricity. I would even argue with flexibility markets, it's even the other way around. It may be a way to ensure, in case of a limitation of electricity, that through flexibility on the production side, it can be ensured that you will have enough electricity to run the baseload household.
Okay, fine. But just to make sure that we are on the same page, um, who are the main participants in the flexibility market, and what roles do they play?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's probably like I already said the word flexibility value chain, which is probably quite a current term for me or for everyone who works in the topic of flexibility. But when I refer to the flexibility value chain, it actually indeed circles around the main participant of a flexibility market. So when I mean the main participants in a flexibility market are the buyers, which in most cases are a system operator, so transmission system operators and distribution system operators. And then there are the sellers, which can be all, like most likely they're covered by the term flexibility service provider or aggregator. So just to refer to the household segment that you were just mentioning, flexibility service provider can also be an industrial unit that participates on its own in the flexibility market, while an aggregator, for instance, can be a retailer who is actually representing households. As an intermediate party between buyers and sellers, there's the flexibility market, like Nodes, and we are providing the market environment and the market infrastructure. So we do the validation and settlement in addition, and also our role as a third party, we ensure the validation and settlement in a neutral, in a transparent way. And also we provide the transparency that is needed for a market in order for price signals to be set as transparent as possible.
Clear. And how do the buyers and sellers interact within this flexibility market? I mean, I guess they do not make phone calls to each other.
No, that's a good point. It's on nodes or as flexibility markets, they communicate through bits, or you can also refer to it as sell offers and buy orders. So where you actually like provide the minimum information necessary to characterize the flexibility product you're interested as a buyer, or you can offer as a seller, which can be broken down to location and volume and price, which you actually submit this type of information in form of a bid into the market. So the opposite party, the counterparty, is informed and can activate the bid if of need.
Okay. I think it's clear now, and we understand how flexibility markets could once be a game changer in tackling issues like congestion and grid balancing. Um, how will this impact or influence the people who work, for example, for a local grid operator? Would it make their lives easier?
That's a good question. I like the question. It's a little bit challenging because I would not necessarily say it makes their life easier, because if we look at the status quo today, the easiest way possible as far as it has been applied is like you use very traditional methods to get rid of a congestion management, which can be pushing a button of another asset to activate or not. The idea of a flexibility market is probably that it would make the life for a grid operator as an institution easier, and also it would help grid operators to optimize their grid management and to find or to be able to select more appropriate flexibility solutions for grid problems that they will face today and now, which are most likely becoming more granular and also more local when we think of increased electrification and digitalization.
Okay. What about the role of flexibility providers or aggregators? Is this a newly established role in the market?
The role of the aggregator, I would say yes, because especially if we think of aggregators representing households, so far households have not been considered as a possible source for grid management or to help or to support grid management, while others there are already, in terms of they're not called FSPs, but in a traditional way there are certain bilateral contracts already in place that between companies and grid operators to help to relieve grid congestions.
Okay. Now, if a flexibility market is to be implemented, like in the area where I live, does the grid infrastructure need to be adapted, or is it the other way around and the flexibility market is tailored to fit the local grid characteristics?
It is indeed supposed to be, as you said, in the later point. So the idea is that flexibility markets are actually to be adapted to the grid infrastructure and to the location where it is. Each flexibility market, according to the region where it is established, whether it's a highly populated area, whether it's an industrial area, whether it's a rural area, has different characteristics. So in that regard, flexibility markets are supposed to cope or to use the resources that are in place in that specific location. So the flexibility market is tailored to the location as such. I just want to make sure flexibility markets, they are an additional method to complete or complement, for instance, current tools that are currently used. They may not, in some locations, substitute entirely necessary grid expansion investment. That's not the case, but this is a very this needs to be evaluated in every location where grid markets or grid flexibility markets are to be established.
Fine. You said earlier that I would not perceive any limitations in my daily routines while energy facility resulting from my energy behavior is used. I wonder which of my energy consuming devices could play a role then. Is it the larger ones like my private electric vehicle charging station, which I only use once every few days?
No, I would say, I mean, like an electric vehicle are probably currently one of the most prominent examples when we talk about flexibility markets and offering flexibility. It can be also simply a washing machine or your oven or heat pumps have also been part of the discussions. As I said, again, like ideally this part is covered by the aggregator and you as a household, you do not need to care about these specifications unless you're interested in it. So ideally, you can run, if your interest, obviously maybe this is like also as tariffs work, you can launch a washing machine when the prices are low. And this is maybe because you have a specific contract with a retailer. But this does not concern you whether to charge your electric vehicle just right now, even though you don't know it, or it's just like if you want to optimize your electricity bill.
Okay. Well, finally, I think we should look ahead. What benefits do you expect from the implementation of flexibility markets for both consumers and energy providers? Will there be a win-win situation?
Well, I think if flexibility markets are to be established the best way possible, I really do think it is a win-win situation. It enables grid operators to substitute some plants for grid investments and as such to save costs. It also helps to use already available resources, so resources that are already in place, to use them in a more efficient way. and it increases ideally the share of renewable energies in the grid. And for the consumer, it ideally would reduce the electricity bill as well. And then, like, if we look more into the environmental part, and using a flexibility is also supposed or aimed to reduce enormously the CO2 emissions, because like then maybe we could make use of less traditional energy sources. But the establishment or the implementation of flexibility market as such does not only, or the correct establishment to really get all these benefits, this also really depends on the regulatory framework that is set in place that applies for flexibility markets, how they are used, but also what type of assets are actually supposed or allowed to take part or to participate in the flexibility market.
Wow, exciting things to come. Gesa, thanks a lot for joining us and for showing us uh, around this exciting field. Thanks very much again, and see you soon.
Thank you very much.
Want to see more about how technology is reshaping our energy grids? Hit the like button and follow us for more insights into cutting edge technology.